Hi, welcome to Train Signal. My name's Bill and this lesson is Search Service Application. In this lesson we're going to talk about, well, you guessed it, it's right there in the title, the Search Service Application. And this is what makes all the wonderful search features in SharePoint 2013 possible. In this lesson we'll show you how to go ahead and create a Search Service Application, get it up and running, and I'm also going to show you how to go ahead and set up your SharePoint crawl so that all of your pages, your sites, your documents that you've uploaded, all of those things that are in SharePoint are going to be available in your search. Now, we're not going to get into a lot of how search works and the different things you can do with it, like setting up a search center. All of that is another lesson for another time. This lesson, like I said, is concentrated on getting that search service application up and running. And so, without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's get started. Now in SharePoint 2010, we actually had two search products. We had our SharePoint Foundation Search and we had Fast Search. Now Fast Search was only available in SharePoint Enterprise and it was a separate install and a separate license. And if you didn't have the Enterprise version of SharePoint, you had no access to Fast Search. And that was kind of unfortunate because it really was a great tool. Well, what they've done this time is they've actually combined SharePoint Search and Fast Search into one unified tool, and that is really, really great. They've gone ahead and unified that Fast Search engine and the SharePoint Search crawler. So what this means is, in this release, every search box in every team site offers full access to enterprise-wide search, people search, and all the other specialized search experiences. Every document library now has a search box at the top. This enables users to search across metadata and the full text of the documents. Really, really great. It's a wonderful thing that they've gone ahead and done, and I, for one, give it a big thumbs up, as you can see. Now, our out-of-the-box search is still pretty much the same. We have our enterprise search, people search, site search, and media search. But there are also a couple of new search features, topic pages, and content by search. And these combined allow for the creation of search-driven sites. Really, really neat features here. Another feature that I really like is My Tasks. My Tasks is available in our My Sites, and this allows users to search for their tasks and pull them together in one centralized location. Users will access a list of all of their SharePoint tasks assigned to them, regardless of which site the assignments are stored in. That's really, really huge, really cool. Now, there's a lot of other really great new search features that come along with SharePoint 2013, but like I said previously, we're not here today to really go ahead and work with all of that. Our goal with this lesson is to get our search service up and running, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, let's go ahead and switch over to our SharePoint server, and we will begin the process of creating our search service application. And here we are back in Central Administration, and we're going to go right to Manage Service Applications. And we'll slide down our list here till we find, there it is, the Search Administration Web Service for the Search Service Application. We will see the Search Service Application and the Search Service Application Proxy. And these are fine. They are here because when we ran the Farm Configuration Wizard, we went ahead and selected these, told the Farm Configuration Wizard, yes, go ahead, create these instances of these service applications for us. And they're fine. We could go ahead and use these right now, but because this is a teaching opportunity, I am going to show you first how to delete a service application, which we've already seen, but we're also going to then show you how to create a new search service application. So we will select our search service application, but we're not going to click here on the little blue highlighted area. You notice how I got the little underline there. It's a link. I'm going to click out here to the right in this row. You get the nice blue highlight, because when I do that, my ribbon lights up and I can now choose delete. And it's going to be working on it here for a second. And do we want to delete the service application? Yes. Do we want to delete the data associated with the service applications? Yes, we do. We'll go ahead and click OK. And although it says this shouldn't take long, we all know that it usually takes longer than we think it does. So I'm going to pause here and we'll be right back. Hey, and we're back, and we see that our service application has been deleted. We'll go ahead and click OK. And we take a look and see no sign of our search service. Great. So now we want to create a new one. We're going to go up here to New. From our drop down, we will slide down here and select Search Service Application. And we'll see that it brings us up a wizard. And it's very much like the wizards we've seen already here in SharePoint. So the first thing we have to do is give our service application a name. And I am going to call it GM Search for GlobalMantics. And we need to select the service account. Now I'm fine with the SP service, but we also have the others in here that we've added, and you can always go ahead and register another new managed account if necessary. And let's scroll down here a little bit, and you'll see that we have to select an application pool. One for our Search Admin Web Service, remember that was there, and one for the Search Query and Site Settings Web Service. Now, you have the option of either using an existing application pool or creating a new application pool. And we've talked about application pools, and we understand the reason for using them and creating new ones. And it all depends on your organizational needs, whether you want to create a new one, or in this case, two. You actually need to have two for our search service, or if you want to use an existing one. And it all depends on, how many users do you have? How much traffic? How many resources are going to be used up? Now, in our instance here, I'm the only one using this SharePoint farm. So it doesn't matter for me to go ahead and create a new application pool. I'm going to simply use an existing application pool because I'm not going to have that much traffic. I'm going to use the existing application pool for both of these. But if you wanted to create a new one, it's just like we saw before. You simply select Create a New Application Pool and give it a name, and select the security account. But we're fine with these existing application pools, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and it will begin to create our new search service application. Now this will take a little bit of time, so I am going to pause here again, and we'll be right back. All right, and we see that our search service application, GM Search, was created successfully. That's exactly what we're looking for, so we'll click OK. Okay, we'll scroll down a little bit and find out, there it is. There's our GM Search, our search application proxy, and if we come down a little bit further, we see our Search Administration Web Service for GM Search. Great, everything is looking good. So we're going to click on our GM Search, and it will take us to our Search Administration page. Everything looks good. Green checks all across the board. Now, occasionally, when you go ahead and create a new search service application, you may come into this window the first time and maybe some of these aren't checked right, or you might get some information up here that says it's unable to connect to the server. Don't panic. Just try restarting your server. Odds are that restart will go ahead and take care of everything for you. Sometimes it's just a little bit sluggish making those connections, but we're looking good. Everything is looking great. Now, before we go any further, I want to go ahead and take us over to our SharePoint. We're going to go to our GlobalMantics main intranet website and try searching for something. So bear with me while we switch over. All right, welcome back to our intranet site. And I want you to notice down here in the right that I have added a number of documents to this library on our intranet website. Now, don't worry about how I did that. We'll show all of that later on in a future lesson. But right now, I just did that because I wanted to give us something that we can search for. And let's take a look. Let's pick one of these. Here, let's take this one, Customers. It's an Excel file. Let's go ahead and we'll go up to our search box, and we'll ask Search to find that document. You would think it'd probably be pretty easy. It's right there. When we click on our search, we see that nothing here matches your search. Well, that's not good, is it? That's not what we want. If that happens to us, we're kind of like, oh boy, something's wrong. Well, that's because we haven't set up our search crawler. the search crawler hasn't gone and searched throughout our SharePoint looking and indexing all of the stuff that exists. So right now, our search comes back with nothing. We have to go and configure and get that crawler started, tell it where to look, tell it what to look for, and then when we come back, we'll be able to find that. So let's go ahead and let's get back to our Search Service Application Administration page. All right, we're back in our Search Administration page, and let's take a quick look here. Recent crawl rate, 0 items per second. Searchable items, 0. Recent query rate, 0. It's because we haven't run any crawls yet. And when we want to do that, we go over here to the crawling section and we will click on Content Sources. This is going to show us where our crawler is going to look for data. Up at the top, we see that we can add new content sources and we can start all crawls, and we're going to do that in just a minute. But first, let's go ahead here. By default, it's set up to crawl the local SharePoint sites. Let's open that up and take a look. When we look at the content source details here, content source type SharePoint sites, that's great. And our crawl status is not available because we haven't run any crawls. But this is the addresses. These are the start addresses for the sites that we're going to set up our crawler to crawl. Now, we're not really using this one, the GMSP 13. Remember, that was that first website, that first site collection that we created. We have our intranet and our My Sites, and then we have the SPS3 intranet.globalmantics. Now, we don't have to really worry about that. The SPS3 is a protocol, and that's used when you've enabled SSL, and we haven't done that, so we're not going to concern ourselves with that. Just remember that this is not something we have to worry about. It's not going to affect anything that we're doing here today. Crawl settings, we can go ahead and set the crawler to crawl everything under the host name for each start address, and that's what it's set to by default, and that's actually where we're going to leave it. That's just fine. Or we can have it only crawl the site collection of each start address. Now you can go ahead and you can enable a continuous crawl. And what the continuous crawl, like it says right here, it's a special type of crawl that eliminates the need to create incremental crawls. It's basically going to go ahead and continuously, like the name suggests, crawl all of your data nonstop. And you'll see, note, once enabled, you will not be able to pause or stop the continuous crawl. You will only have the option of disabling it. That's good to know. Now, the continuous crawl is new in 2013, and it is a great thing. It's going to make sure that your data is crawled more frequently. And if you have a lot of data getting pushed to your SharePoint server, that's probably a really good way to go ahead and work with your crawls. But remember, it is resource intensive. Think about the memory used. It's always crawling, it's always working 24/7. So you have to make sure when you're planning your SharePoint farm that you have enough resources to handle that. Now you can also go ahead and set up incremental crawls. And you see the schedule there. You can also do full crawls the same way. It all depends, again, on your organizational needs. Now, for our purposes here, I'm just going to leave it at incremental crawls, and I'm not going to create a schedule because we're just going to do a very quick, fast crawl so that we can find the little bit of data that we have in here. Now, you can also go ahead, there are a lot of options that you can look through and you can go ahead and set for your crawl. But one that I want to show you specifically is file types. And you'll notice that you can, like it says, use this page to specify the file types to include in the content rules. So you can add new file types, or you can go ahead and say, don't crawl these types of files. And you see all kinds of Visio files, Excel files, PowerPoint presentations, PDFs, OneNote, Word, all of that and more available for you to go ahead and crawl. All right, now let's go ahead and let's take a look at adding a new content source. Let's click here. And we can go ahead and actually have our crawler also search not only our SharePoint sites, but websites, file shares, Exchange folders, line of business data, custom repositories, all types of things in here outside of our regular SharePoint sites. And you would need to give it a name. and an address where to go ahead and look. Now, we're not going to bother adding any more things in here like websites and stuff like that. We're just doing a very, very quick. And like I told you before, we're not here to explore all of the features of search. That's another lesson for another day. We just want to go ahead and get our search service up and running. And we still have the same options to crawl for these additional content sources the same way we did with our regular SharePoint sites. All right, that being done, let's go ahead and let's start a crawl. And you notice I click that and it says it's starting. Now I'm going to give this a few seconds and I'll refresh. And it's going to take, there we go, look at that, we're 1 second in. Now this is going to take a little bit of time. Depending on how much data you have, it's going to take a little bit of time or a lot of bit of time. Now, if I had to guess, based on the amount of data that we have in our SharePoint and the scope of our SharePoint sites right now, it's probably going to take about 2 minutes, maybe 2.5, to go ahead and search. So you don't want to sit here and wait for that. So I'm going to pause, and we'll be right back. All right, and I'm back. And look at that. Wow, it took a lot longer than I thought. It was 4 minutes and 2 seconds. And to get that, all I did was hit refresh. Now, I'm going to tell you something right now. This is not going to work. But don't panic. I know why, and that's why I'm here to show you. In fact, before we go any further, let's go back to our intranet site and do another search. All right, so we're going to try the same search again. We run our crawl. So now we figure, hey, everything's going to be great, and still nothing. Told you it wasn't going to work. Why? Let's go ahead. We got to find out what happened, and we got to fix it. All right? So let's get back to our server. Now, to find out exactly what went wrong, we need to go ahead and take a look at the crawl log. And when we look over here at our summary, we see that we had some errors. We had our regular errors, 3 errors, and 3 top-level errors. Well, they're the same. This just top-level error is going to give us a little bit more information about them. So I'm going to click there. And we see that we have 3 errors. They're all the same. Access is denied. Verify that either the default content access account has access to this repository or add a crawl rule to this repository. And it's the same for all 3 of those addresses. So what does this mean? If the repository being crawled is a SharePoint repository, verify that the account you're using has full read permissions on the SharePoint web application being crawled. Well, we know that that's already the case. In fact, let's go back to our search administration. And when we look here at the default content access account, it's the SP service account. And we know we added that into Active Directory. It's part of our farm. It's a registered managed account. We know that that's fine. We know that there's not a problem with that. So we don't have to second guess ourselves about that. So what is the problem? Well, it comes down to, in our case, the loopback security check. And you might be asking yourself, you might be asking me, what exactly is that, Bill? Well, way back in Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 1, the loopback security check was introduced. And it's still with us today. And it is, well, it's a feature that prevents access to a web application using a fully qualified domain name. So what that means is if you attempt to go ahead and access that application from a machine that hosts the application, as we just did, you will get that access denied error that we just saw. And in the event log, it'll show up as a login failure. Now, there are 2 ways to go ahead and work around this. And I'm going to give you this link to this article. This is a Microsoft Knowledge Base article, which has all of the information, step-by-step detailed instructions how to do this. It's going to give you a little bit more information. Now, one way to go ahead and deal with this is to go ahead and simply disable the loopback security check. And that is not recommended in a production environment. What it does is it opens you up to a reflection attack. But if it's a lab, it's your development environment, testing environment, and you want to do that, that's fine. It's easy to do. And this article will give you the information to do that. But in our situation, because we're proceeding as if we're in a production environment, we're not going to go ahead and do that. What we are going to do instead is we are going to go into our registry and we are going to add a new multi-string value. And we are going to specify the host names, our intranet.globalmantics.com, and we'll also add in mysites.globalmantics.com so that we can then go ahead and connect back to those websites. And I will show you step by step how to do that. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Let's get this search working. All right, so we're back here on our server, and we need to get into our registry. So we'll simply put in our regedit. Go there. Now, we're looking for HKey local machine, system, current control set. Let me do this. Let's make this bigger. Control. LSA. MSV1_0. Okay. And if you're confused, you're not sure where this is, where you're supposed to go to that link I just gave you for that Microsoft Knowledge Base article, and it'll all be right there. Now we're going to click in here and select New Multi-String Value. And we have to give our value a name, and we are going to put in back connection host names and hit enter. In fact, let me make that bigger so you can see the whole thing. Back connection host names. Make sure that's selected. Right click again and choose modify. Now in here we are going to add our FQDNs, our fully qualified domain names. And that was intranet.globalmantics.com and mysites.globalmantics.com. Double check those, make sure everything is okay. Looks good. Choose OK. That's okay. We don't have to worry about that. Look at that. Intranet.globalmantics.com, mysites.globalmantics.com. That is great. Everything looks good. Now, we can close this, and we're not quite done yet. What we need to do is go ahead and reset IIS. So, there we go. IIS reset. No force. It's tempting to restart now. Excellent. All right, now let's go ahead. We'll go back to our search administration. It's taking a little bit of time here to get us back to our content sources. Okay, and what we're going to do is we are going to run another crawl. So let's start the crawl. Refresh there. Let's do it again. There we go. We're 3 seconds in. Now it took 4 minutes and 2 seconds the last time. It probably won't take as long this time because it's already crawled once, and remember we're doing an incremental crawl. So let's go ahead. I'm going to still pause, and we'll be right back. All right, I have let a few minutes pass. Let's go ahead and refresh and see. Nope, it's not quite done. It's still crawling. So we'll go ahead and I'll give it a little bit more time, but I wanted to show you this because while the crawl is running, and remember we talked about this, if it's a continuous crawl, you're not going to go ahead and have this option. But because we're doing an incremental crawl, I can tell it to stop or pause. But I don't want to do that. I want to go ahead and keep this going, let it finish its work. And like I said, we had 2 minutes and 8 seconds in, and we still have some time to go. So I'm going to pause here, and I'll be right back. All right, our second crawl is done. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at our log. And we go over and we look, and we only have one error. Let's go to our top level errors. And it has to do again with that SPS3. The SPS3 is actually a protocol that we use when we do people search. It uses HTTP GET calls to pull the information, and SOAP calls, SOAP Simple Object Access Protocol, to get additional information. So it's not something that's going to concern us or affect what we're doing now. The important thing is we got the other errors gone. We have fixed our problem. We will now be able to go ahead and crawl without any problem and have a working search box. So let's go to our GlobalMantics intranet site and run another search. All right, here we are again at our GlobalMantics intranet site. Let's run another search. Oh, look at that. Isn't that nice? That is perfect. Give us exactly what we're looking for. We even have our little timeline over here. That's awesome. Let's go ahead, let's do another one. Let's try, you know what? Let's search for me. And we will see that all of the documents that I have created show up. How about that? Now that's a pretty good search engine. All right, we got our search service application up and running. The crawls are working good. Our search works just fine. I guess that means that's it for this lesson, gang. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.